Holy shit, we did it. That's the only way to sum it up. All right, you can give all your analysis you want, but at the end of the day, the only thing to say is, can you believe it? We actually did it. Craziest thing we've ever seen. Did we expect it? No, absolutely not. You're a fool if you did, to be honest with you. Like, I cannot believe it. Joey, Lynch, you witnessed this in person. You were in the ground. I want you to confirm that this is true. I haven't been sleeping a lot lately. I might be hallucinating. Tell me this isn't a dream.
It definitely happens. It was incredible. But no, yes, it definitely happens. I spoke to the players after the game. They all confirmed that it happened. Australia have won 2 games at a FIFA World Cup for the first time in the nation's history. They are through to the round of 16 for just the second time in the nation's history. And now they will meet Lionel Messi and Argentina for the first time ever in a World Cup.
I haven't been in this much shock since the head of the A-Leagues said that we could call it the A-Liga. So, you know, it's been a wild week. Geraldo, as he often does, sums up the moment perfectly on YouTube. Fucking all right, excellent. That's what we want to hear. Lazar 11, come on, the lads. OMG, WTF, just happened. Good acronym usage. We love acronyms here. Keep the comments coming in. Potentially more TNC people will be joining us later in the show. We don't know what's going to happen, but this is a World Cup of chaos, of beautiful chaos, of unexpected things. So let's see what happens.
Which Miloš Stegenek said as much after the game. He talked about how the World Cup and football at its core is about beautiful, beautiful chaos. And that 4 years ago, Croatia made the final. And Leicester City once won the Premier League. So why can't Australia go on a deep run? That's sort of that's one of the messages coming out of the Socceroos camp after the game, as well as underestimate us at your peril.
We're 2 minutes in, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're 4 games away from the final. All right, countdown to us versus Brazil. Let's go.
Can you imagine a World Cup final, Australia versus England in a World Cup final?
I mean, I couldn't imagine us in the round of 16 against Messi and Argentina. All right. So, yeah, sure. Can I? Hypothetically, whatever. I don't know. I'm in a state of shock, disbelief. This is one of the crazy. I mean, I was on the BBC World News before. I imagine the viewers were in shock when they saw me in this shirt, by the way, that I wore because I went to a Christmas party last night. Then I went into work to work on the game. Then I worked on another game, Argentina, and then now we're doing this show. What a wild thing, Joey. Tell me about the day for you. In the stadium, your thoughts. How did it unfold?
Well, started off, I got to admit, I was in bed for a while. It's been very, very late nights here over the past few nights. 10 p.m. kickoffs, filing.
Partying, bit of partying with the filing, party, yeah, file.
It's actually rather difficult to party here in Doha, Nick Stoll. I'm not sure if you've heard. It's rather difficult to find the necessary lubrications to get on the parties here in Qatar. So this morning got up, explored the souk with Greg Baum and Vince Regari, got to the ground about 2 hours beforehand, nerves kicking in, listening to Adagio for strings on the walk up to the stadium, getting in the mood, bit of the Veronicas as well. And then the game happened. And I got to admit, the opening 45 minutes, Socceroos got killed, man.
I'd say the opening 30, then we got a little bit of control.
Yeah, you're right. I apologize. Yeah, you're right.
40th minute, there was a tipping point. There was this beautiful moment where it just felt like we started to realize, we're going to probably get to halftime 0-0, and the Danes realized we've been absolutely ripping these guys apart, and we're still 0-0, and we're probably going to go into halftime 0. And suddenly the anxiety flipped. We had all the anxiety first 40 minutes, like don't concede, don't concede, don't concede. And by the way, I love Arnie had said all this stuff about we're going for the win. We're going for the win. Yeah, not really. Not really. Let's not even pretend, But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We actually won the game. Oh man. And then to the 40th minute, it flipped a little bit. Then the anxiety went on, the Danes, but still a long 45 minutes to go. And then there was this one moment. I don't know if it was clear to you guys in the stadium, obviously for us back in the studios here in Sydney. Tunisia went up 1-0. And it was like, oh my God. Like, we'd seen the France lineup. We'd seen, why France played. I haven't even heard of some of these players on the French team. Do you know how crazy
I can walk you through the timeline from that about what the players and the managers were hearing. So 58th minute, the game's kicked off simultaneously. 58th minute, Tunisia goes 1-0 ahead. Tony Vidmar gets the word and tells Rene Meulenstein, Tunisia are 1-0 ahead. Rene,
can I ask, how is he? Is it live score, sofa score, FOT mob? What is Tony Vidmar's choice of application to tell him?
I'll ask him tomorrow. But so Rene Meulenstein prepares to go and tell Arnie, currently as it stands, Tunisia lead, we're third, we need a goal. Then Leckie scores before Meulenstein has a chance to tell Graham Arnold that Tunisia lead. So the first time Graham Arnold discovers that Tunisia has scored is after he's finished celebrating Matthew Leckie's now famous goal. The word is then sent out to the players via Miloš Degenek, who gets them all in a huddle and tells them that Tunisia have scored. We need to keep it tight. We need to keep a clean sheet. We need the win. We cannot let the Danes get back into it. None of the players believe Miloš Degenek. They think Miloš Degenek has just been sent out there to try to keep them on their toes. They think it's a mind trick from Graham Arnold. So they don't actually believe Miloš Degenek. A few of them start to get word when they go near the sidelines and all that sort of stuff. But speaking to Jackson Irvine after the game, he didn't believe Miloš. He was telling us that when Miloš was saying this, he was thinking to himself, "No, that's good, Miloš. That's smart. Yeah, keep them on their toes. It's really smart. Yeah, good thinking, Miloš." So that is the timeline for the interlude between Tunisia scoring and Australia going ahead.
So speaking of timelines, we have to, Leckie, you are a national hero, okay? Did he equal or did he beat the record with Tim Cahill and Bresciano for most World Cup games today?
So he and Matty Ryan have now equaled Bresciano and Cahill on 9 World Cup games for the record. But now Leckie has ensured that him and Matty Ryan will break that against Argentina.
Let's Arnie. Selection, a huge selection chaos. Redmayne in, Leckie to the bench. I'm changing it all up. But speaking of timelines, all right. So Leckie, you're an absolute national hero. All right, you're in the Parthenon with Cahill and Bresciano and Kuhl and Viduka and all those guys now, because his goal, right? Tunisia 1-0 up, 98th minute. If it was 0-0, right? 98th minute, Griezmann scores. So we would have thought when our game finished, we'd have thought, oh, we're lost, we're out. How disappointing we came so close. And then Griezmann's goal would have given us hope. We would have been celebrating around the country. The second screeners would have been cheering. We've done it. Oh my God, thank you, Griezmann. You've done it. Then VAR stepped in and said that goal was offside, and we would have been crushed. Imagine that we went out. If it was not for Matthew Leckie's goal, we would have gone out of this competition thanks to a VAR on Griezmann. It would have killed us. So thank you to Matthew Leckie. Thank you to the Socceroos. Unbelievable. We're going to try and get Lachie Flanagan, Nick DeBano on, who were at Josh Parrish as well, who were at Fed Square. Incredible scenes at Fed Square. But what were the scenes?
I should point out quickly before we get to that. The French Federation has already announced that they are lodging a protest about that goal being disallowed. I haven't read into it. I don't know. It's just been going off in the ESPN FC group chat while we're here. The French lodging you know, the bullshit. We cannot lose to Tunisia. We need, to go undefeated. We are going to protest you. This cannot count. You FIFA pig dogs.
Well,
So
I want to give a TNC exclusive. This is a world exclusive ESPN. You can take it live. So France is lodging a complaint. Also, the Portuguese FA are lodging a complaint. They think Ronaldo should be awarded that goal. If it does stand, it should be Ronaldo's. So, well done, Cristiano. Do your celebration because you deserve it, my friend. Claim all the goals that you don't actually score for you. Tell me, Lachie, I think young boy, he's just about to join us. Fresh off coming from Fed Square. Lachie, are you good to go? Let's bring you in. Lachie, tell us, you were in Fed Square. What was it like, my friend? Can you hear us, Lachie?
It was crazy.
No.
Look, to be honest with you,
there we go.
I'm still here. I'm hanging on for dear life, which says a lot about my sleep state as well as the state of my internet at the moment. But part of the reason I'm coming on this podcast is because I'm afraid that when I eventually go to sleep, I will wake up from like what has been the last 9 hours, which was a dream sequence. Like I'm worried that I've dreamt all of this and, I'll wake up, it's 12:30 and I've got to go to the Denmark game in an hour and a half. But
you're
the longer I
worried that
stay
you're
up,
just going to look around and Leonardo DiCaprio is like sitting behind you with like a little dreidel.
Something like that. Also, Joey, I just want to say, good to see you back on the pod. Given you are the official Socceroos good luck charm. One World Cup attended. Socceroos into the round of 16, making history. Joey Lynch, luck of the Irish Lynch. That's what we're going to call him from now on. It was amazing.
What was Michael Lynch doing then at all those other ones?
He was only 50% of the luck. He needed him and your mother to combine to create the lucky charm. Joey, you have to attend
the
every
chosen one.
Forever.
Joey had been foretold in many prophecies that he would be the one to restore the Socceroos to balance. It was incredible, Stoll. I didn't really know how to sort of weigh it up heading in because obviously I'd been there during the Tunisia game as well, and there was 6,000-7,000 people. It was incredible. There was a heap of noise. And obviously you're thinking 2 a.m. midweek, the kids, the young brigade have got school the next day. What kind of sacrifice are you going to make when you've got, the year 9 maths test tomorrow? But I rocked up at 1. I rocked up at 1 in the morning. So a full hour before the game. It was heaving, man. It was heaving. The flares were going off 30 minutes before the game. And then, everyone else has seen what's been and gone since. I had people messaging me again about how do I get down? Are you going? Should I drive up from the Mornington Peninsula just to be here? And I'm like, yes. It's incredible.
You should drive up from the Antarctic Peninsula to be.
I'll go out on record. You can find these tweets. I was telling people who were like, "Oh, what should we do in Adelaide? Where are people congregating?" I'm like, mate, it's an 8-hour drive to Melbourne. You've got time. Just floor it.
Don't people on the Mornington Peninsula have their own drivers to just drop them off?
No, that's Vince Regari. It's not Mornington.
He was in the stadium. But fly private helicopter, all good.
Vince is actually Uber. That's the secret.
He and I exchanged a very big bear hug after the game. We just dropped all sense of professionalism and had a big old bear hug.
Was that like, how was it Rodrigo like rubbed Ronaldo's legs for like good luck? Was that what the bear hug is? And now you're going to get a heap of like financial prosperity?
No, it was just a good old fashioned, good natured bear hug. Unfortunately, I couldn't reach into his back pocket and take his wallet out while he was hugging me.
It was too heavy. So can I just ask you, Joey? Usually there's a thing, no cheering in the press box. Was that rule thoroughly broken today? It's
a World Cup. Of course, it was broken. Yeah. Shout out to the ABC and friend of the pods, the Far Post pod, Sam Lewis, for bursting into tears at the final whistle and still being in tears about half an hour to 45 minutes later. There was a lot of emotion. Fist bumps with Dave Davutovic and an Austrian journo just come up and congratulate me. Like, there were good vibes. Like,
did he get confused? Was he trying to find the Austrian game?
What Austrian game? But no, like, it's this just, there's good vibrations in this team, around this team at the moment, which it feels like such a contrast to vast stretches over the past 4.5 years. And it sort of feels like a lot of it, well, I'm not sure about, how you guys feel, but a lot of it just sort of like comes down to just switching, how I learned to stop worrying and love the Aussie DNA. It's sort of like not, it's sort of like knowing that it exists, but like knowing that nothing you say or do is going to change the way that the Socceroos set up against France, or the way that the Socceroos set up against Tunisia, where they were very, from a completely neutral standpoint, perhaps fortunate to come away with a clean sheet and a win. And the same thing with like the opening 40 minutes against the Danes.
Are
Like,
you saying we're the Zen team? Are we the Zen team of the World Cup?
I'm not. Well, I wouldn't say the players are the Zen team. I think they're more so the buy-in, the family, the do it for your mates, the win one for your Gipper team. But just like sort of like it feels like here watching them on, you just have to turn your football brain off and realise that it's been 4.5 years of Arnie Ball. Nothing's going to change. The only way this team is going to win games at the World Cup is by Arnie Ball, Aussie DNA, and they've won 2 games now. So enjoy the ride. Like, because from a completely neutral standpoint, I can pick holes in all those performances, but like it feels churlish. It feels churlish to do that, and I don't want to do that.
It also, it just also doesn't feel like the time is right to do that. Like we're talking about a team that achievements-wise has not just matched the golden generation, they've surpassed the golden generation, and then have surpassed pretty much everything else that's come before them. Like this is, like it or not, this is a generational team. Like this is a team that has done things that we could never have dreamt of. And on the DNA stuff, I mean, we might have our qualms about it as people who are hyper invested in football and how it's played and all of those sorts of things. But, from someone who was in that sea that's on the live stream, but I'm sure people who are listening on the podcast have seen the photos of the crowds at Fed Square. I was in the middle of those people, many of whom were average punters, casual people who had come down because they'd seen what had happened before, or jump on because it's the Socceroos. They don't have any problems with Aussie DNA whatsoever. Some of the biggest cheers were long bombed clearances, even if some of them were ironic jeers. But people do, as casual fans, enjoy that sort of spirited, hard-working performance. And I think for now, while that is what we're going to do, and we're not going to compromise on it, we just have to get behind it, because being in that crowd, that was the moment where I'm like, no, I don't need to analyze this now. I just need to sit back and enjoy the moment, because we haven't been here in this way.
Yeah. It's like I can take a ton of issue with Aussie DNA when the Aussie DNA involves scraping past Vietnam on the road, or drawing 1-1 with China on the road during qualifying, or dropping points, eminently gettable points against an Oman. But against it didn't work against France. The power of Aussie DNA on its own, without a great technical base, was exposed against the French. But against the Tunisians, against the Danes, it was enough. Will it be enough against Argentina? I mean, let's be completely honest here. Almost certainly not. However,
we said that about everything. We just
but at this point, I'm just like, how can we say no?
But like it's like when you're removing all emotion and that from, and looking at it purely logical, of course the Socceroos are massive underdogs. It's just an objective observation of fact. You wrote that, but it's now. But I don't know, like, just being here, and I'm sure back there as well. Like, sometimes facts can just get in the bin. Like, they're into the round of 16. Who knows what's going to happen with Arnie heading into the next 4 years? I keep going back and forth on that, about what is likely to happen on that front. Keep swinging between wildly different views on what is going to happen with his contract.
We'll talk
But,
about
like,
that once we're out of the World Cup, but we're still in there.
yeah,
know?
like it's like some,
I mean,
football. Look, football is about being happy. I'm happy,
and you
right now.
embody that.
You're right. I am probably one of, if not the worst people in the world to,
Oh, I'm clipping
deliver that message.
I am clipping that, Joey. The pause. You've killed yourself with the pause.
And I like that you say in the world, because if you said the universe, there's someone in the UFO who could rival you.
Yeah. All right. I will admit that I revel in a state of misery and lack of emotion and just cynicism. But even I will admit that even if it's a struggle for me to embrace it and enjoy it, football is about joy. It's about what we saw in Federation Square today. It's about what we saw when Matthew Leckie sprinted to the corner flag and celebrated with his teammates. It's about the kids that are going to go out this morning. Where it's a school day, isn't it? So they're going to go to school. They're going to go to the park. They're going to go in their backyards. And some of them are going to grab a football. And who do you think they're going to be mimicking when they score a goal? It's not going to be Cristiano. It's not going to be some of it might be Cristiano. Some of it might be Lionel Messi.
Only if they miss the ball.
Yeah, that'll be pretending to score the goal.
That'll be the kid who missed it.
But more of them than there were yesterday will be pretending to be Matt Leckie.
That's right. Let's go to some comments.
I feel unclean delivering that. I feel like I'm destroying my brand.
Nah, bullshit. That was nice. Good on you, Joey.
Joey,
Tony says,
drink the Kool-Aid. It tastes good.
Right.
It tastes good.
I'm on tap water at the moment.
I'm thirsty. Give me a double.
It's 2 a.m. All the supermarkets are shut. I'm on water.
Tony says Messi v Sutar. You know it makes sense. Frank says beautiful chaos is Aussie football DNA. Our Liga, beautiful chaos. Lazar11 has an apology. Say sorry to my neighbors who definitely heard by my Harry Kewell style shriek at whatever o'clock this morning when Leckie banged in the winner. Lachie, tell us about, you were there in Fed Square. Just, we went through the timeline a little bit with Joey. There was a moment where Tunisia went up 1-0. I don't know if that was apparent to the crowd at Fed Square. And then about a minute later, Leckie scored. So just take us through that moment, that explosion of joy, as Joey says. That's what football is about.
Well, it almost caught you by surprise, because yes, there was that sort of Tunisia element that had a few people distracted, and sort of throughout there'd been joking yells throughout the crowd of, "Oh, Tunisia have scored!" The whole phantom goal.
Assholes.
It's fun. It's funny. I'll let them have it.
That's when security. The only time security should be heavy-handed when football fans is assholes like that.
Can I just say about that? Security were great.
Yeah.
There was a far greater police presence tonight than there was obviously on Saturday, which I think exceeded most people's expectations. Was
there more people?
I'm not 100% sure. I would say it's about the same, possibly more, but I was towards the back. But like when I saw them, I was quite worried that if things go a bit wrong here, you're expecting the police to kind of, as a football fan, you often get that kind of sensitivity to what might happen if the result's going poorly.
We have trauma. It
was so well managed, because there were so many flares, there were so many reasons for people or police to try and wade through the crowd and interfere. They just let people do their thing, and if there were things that needed to be sorted out around the edges of the crowd, that was done. But they let the football fans do what they do best, and for the most part, if people who were throwing flares, that sort of stuff, they were called out by people within the group and identified. So it was a really well managed event, and I hope that's a trend that continues. Anyway, as for the goal, it was a weird one, because it kind of, Leckie's run on the viewing sort of angle that we had was kind of cut off on the side of the screen. So you saw McGree pass it forwards, and you're like, what the hell is he doing? And then all of a sudden the camera pans across, and you just see that he's passed it perfectly to Leckie. And there was an initial sort of uproar, but it kind of ebbed and flowed, because Leckie's own sort of run is a bit a bit jinking and back and forth, and he slows down, he speeds up, he goes one way, then the other. And you could feel the crowd sort of oohing and ahhing with that movement before this just crescendo into, the crowd explosion to end all crowd explosions. From my experiences, at least, I had someone in front of me who I had to hold on to their hoodie for dear life so they didn't smack the floor. But once I'd got them upright, I was lifting them up and down. We were jumping around. I was hugging people I've never met before, but had been exchanging, critical comments about Aaron Moy during the game. It was just fantastic. And the other thing I really liked about it was the time between the goal going in and the people who had brought the flares, ripping them, 5 seconds max. Like, they did not hesitate. They must have had like a hair trigger on these flares. I'm like sitting there, like getting tense. Like, I need to let it go, because the minute the goal went in, it's 5 seconds, boom. And
not that it was, but can you imagine if it went to VAR with just flares, 5,000 flares? Have to blow.
Well, this was actually a legitimate concern, Stoll, because at least where I was towards kind of the back of the crowd, there was so many flares, there was so much smoke that everyone from sort of the middle of the pack backwards couldn't actually see the viewing screen. So, and it probably stuck around the smoke for a good 1 or 2 minutes. So after the sort of first minute of jubilation, I did turn across to someone and go, shit, imagine if Denmark have equalized from kickoff or something and the smoke clears and it's 1-1.
We can laugh about it now. Tony says via YouTube, the 2006 crowds at Fed Square were amazing, but this is next level, and not just because we have social media to amplify it. Bring on Sunday morning. So just a couple of things on this. The social media reception has been incredible. Like, people around the world doing it. I was on the BBC. They played it. It really, and it is something that, for so many years in Australia, I don't know about you guys, but I've looked at scenes like that at Fed Square, but I've seen them in Buenos Aires or in Istanbul or, in other parts of the world. And I've always thought, man, if only we could have it here in Australia. And the fact that we had it here in Melbourne at 3 a.m., it actually, I'm so proud of us, just Australian football fans, and so proud of the Australian football community for not caring what, might be on the news the next night or anything like that. It was amazing. Joey?
What it feels like to me, the way that this Federation Square in particular has taken on a life of its own, it sort of feels like you've got the players and the fans over here, but match days or match nights, in this case at Federation Square, are sort of the beating heart of this campaign. Every single player after the France game, after the Tunisia game, no doubt after this game, has referenced watching the videos from Federation Square. I showed Jackson Irvine the video after the Tunisia game, and he was gobsmacked. One of the first things they all did when they got into the dressing room after beating Denmark and progressing through to the round of 16 was watch the videos from Federation Square and just see what their accomplishments, what their running, what their efforts meant to the people back home. Because, I know, God, I'm so uncynical on this show, but we also...
We made the round of 16.
I know.
If ever there is a time to get rid of cynicism, it is today, my friend.
I think
tomorrow you can come back to it. In a few days after Sunday, no problem. But today, forget the cynicism.
What we and I think obviously it needs to be put into context. These are highly paid professional athletes, doing their jobs that many people would like to do, but they have, it was a very difficult qualification period for the Socceroos. Long stints in hotel quarantine, long stints away from family and friends, long stints not playing in Australia. And I'm not even going to pretend that they had it harder than some other segments of Australia's population or populations around the world. They were never locked in, council houses or something like that. But it was still difficult, and they were targeted with a lot of deserved criticism, I think. I think we here on TNC were fair with our criticism and we tried to direct it at the right people. And I think we were some of the leading voices pushing back against the narrative that the players weren't good enough, which sort of felt like it became just sort of accepted collective wisdom amongst vast swathes of the footballing public. But it's the opportunity for the Socceroos to now see those scenes and be reminded of just what they're playing for and what their achievements mean to Australia. Like, that's like emotional crack. Like, I don't think any of us will ever, I almost said none of us will ever make anybody that happy, but that leaves me open to some very obvious jokes. I don't think any of us will make anybody that happy with our achievements on the sporting field. So it must be fantastic for them.
I don't know. You didn't see Nick Stoll play for Stan Sport at the JMF games.
Look, I just say, like, what is the point? I mean, this is getting very philosophical. What is the point of doing anything if not to bring other people joy? Like, what a waste of your life if that's not what you're trying to do, you know? The reason we do this pod, I think, is in part to bring people joy, to give something enjoyable for people to listen to. So, yeah, I think it's just a beautiful, magical moment. And Fed Square is starting to become part of, like, Australian football kind of folklore and history. It is such a symbol now. Like, I feel like if someone says to me, "Oh, where should I watch a Socceroos game?" Fed Square. Like, it's actually a shame that Sydney doesn't have an equivalent, and it shows, like, you know, I like to stick up for Sydney on this pod, but Melbourne streets ahead when it comes to the viewing pictures. So it's been absolutely incredible. Ben Smith, friend of the show, says via YouTube, football or sport in general, really, for all its rich tactical subtext, is also a game which at its heart is a reflection of emotion. And God, wasn't there a lot of emotion today? You know, I mean, look, I don't even know where to go from here. Lachie, tell us what happened at the final whistle. We talked about what happened at the goal. What happened at the final whistle in Fed Square?
Can I fill in a couple of, like, extra details throughout?
Just tell the story of Fed Square.
Just a few fascinating bits that people who went there might have missed. Which
did anyone let off a balloon and Nick Dabano got scared once again?
Well, I will say there were a few. Don't worry, I'm not going to get into it. There were a few balloons floating around, but they weren't necessarily balloons. They were other latex material that might have been inflated.
I saw during the Tunisia game, someone punched a cone. Like,
that happened last. That happened last time. There was probably too many police for that to occur on someone's shoulders, as it did on Saturday.
What an odd way, possibly a very unique Australian way to celebrate.
I passed that tidbit on to a few of the players in the mix zone that somebody just ripped one on somebody else's shoulders in the celebrations of the Tunisia, and they loved it.
It was good, and they were being urged to go again as well. There was seriously, while this person was lighting up, there was a whole, like, whoa, and the minute the puff of smoke came out, I was like, way. I had a front row seat to that. It was great. Anyway, that was last game. Let's talk about this one.
There's nothing like it.
And the point at which this all could have gone very wrong, which was, I think, about 60 or 70 minutes into the game, where the viewing picture on Fed Square dropped. It went out. There was a black screen, and everyone was freaking out. It was an arms race.
I can guarantee that was not SBS's fault.
No, it wasn't, because the sound was still going. It was just the vision that disappeared, but you couldn't really, for obvious reasons, hear the sound and the commentary that well. So it just became an arms race to who can get a phone out the fastest, who can actually get reception, because everyone's using their phone. You know, how quickly can I maneuver myself around the nearest person who has a phone that has a working stream? Luckily, that only lasted for 1 to 2 minutes. The only time where that became relevant again was when, obviously, we're in the lead and we're wanting France to score to shore this up, because no one felt confident about 1-0. There was plenty of yelling at the screen to Denmark, your tournament's done anyway. Kick the ball into your own net so that we can, so that we don't have to live with this stress. France, we need to equalize. And it became apparent that Mbappe, I think in stoppage time of the Tunisia game, had a free kick. And so again, the arms race commenced and the phones came out just to watch this Mbappe free kick. And everyone's staring at it. No one's watching the Denmark game anymore. Mbappe hits the wall, but whatever, it was worth the attempt. But yeah, and then that sort of leads towards the full-time whistle. And I mean, I think with about 2 minutes to go, I think everyone knew. Like Denmark had sort of, I don't know.
They created nothing.
Yeah, they were really poor.
It's actually amazing to think like this wasn't a game where Matt Ryan made 25 saves. The ball hit the bar 3 times. We held on for dear life. Like the Socceroos defended it very well, actually, and managed the game well. And I thought, actually, praise to Graham Arnold for when he brought on Bailey Wright and just managed the moment very well. But God, Denmark, man, amazing. The first game, Denmark and Tunisia drew 0-0, and that made us think, oh, both these teams are good. It turns out neither of them were good. We were better. Incredible, Joey.
2 things on that front. First, there should be more details about this coming in the next 24 hours. Details are being nailed down, but Bailey Wright deserves a lot of credit tonight. Like, legitimately.
Sorry, I think you're going to say more details about the the ripping of the bong.
More details are going to come out once they're confirmed, but Bailey Wright's a hero for what he did tonight. So it doesn't matter if I write it, who writes it.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
No, you don't want to be wrong with this. The other thing was, Tunisia. Not Tunisia, Denmark. Stank going forward. I think reflective of sort of like the control they had of the game versus their actual ability to create high quality chances. I think Matt Ryan completed the most passes of any Socceroos player, which shows you how deep the Roos were pegged back and how much control of the game the Danes had for vast swathes. And I think he only had to make 5 or 6 saves.
Yeah.
The Danes have started 3 different centre forwards throughout this entire World Cup, and they've come up blank against Tunisia and Australia, the 2 sides that they would have been penciling in as their wins, as their tickets to get out of the group. This side was European semi-finalists last year. This side is packed full of players playing at some of the biggest clubs in some of the biggest leagues in Europe. It feels great for the Socceroos, but it also needs to be said, this was a massive, massive letdown for the Danes. Now, speaking with some Danish journalists before the game, they're like,
tune into the Danish national curriculum to
I was going to say that.
I gotcha. we say it every time.
Speaking to some Danish journalists, the esteem the team is held in means there likely won't be one specific scapegoat. But this is a massive failure on their part. They were drawn in a group with France, Tunisia, and Australia, and they're going home with a single point from a 0-0 draw with Tunisia. For a team that made the Euro semi-finals last year, with the talent they have, that is a failing grade, and it's quite frankly, it's stupefying that just how poor they were throughout this entire tournament going forward, putting balls in the back of the net. Joey,
really? Do you really need to think about it too much? What did they lack? The Danes and the Tunisian, what don't they have that we have? DNA. All right, baby. 3 letters. It's what's got us 6 points. All right. Turns out France has some other DNA that we might need to investigate. But the Danes and the Tunisians, we got Aussie DNA.
Benelli DNA. That's what we need. Benelli DNA. We need to mix that up with Aussie DNA.
Hey, speaking of Aussie DNA, I mean, Harry Suter is coming out of this tournament in just his stock. Well, his stock was already high, but the fact that he's having such a good tournament, given how little football he's played this season, is absolutely incredible. I don't know, Joey, if kind of Graham Arnold's talked to that, or Suter himself has talked to that about how he got ready for this. But I've been absolutely, I thought Suter's been excellent, and actually, I thought it was funny how often Denmark was kind of, especially in the second half, just swinging crosses into the box. And I was thinking, look, the one guy that I think I would felt fine about those crosses. I was like, we got Suta. He's just going to get on the end of every. That's not how I would attack Australia. I don't imagine that's how Argentina will attack Australia. Swinging crosses into Messi. But
admittedly, it worked. It worked pretty well for France with 3 headers.
Yes. Their wingers are a different level. But yeah, it just and do you guys ever think back to so 2020, just before we were awarded the Women's World Cup, we'd gone through COVID, kind of the A-League was in a really, really, really bad spot in terms of switching over from broadcasters and having all their issues. The Socceroos, Football Australia, I think there was talk of, they were struggling to keep the lights on. They barely had any cash in the can. And now we've made a round of 16. The A-League's had a really good start to the season, with the Sydney Derby and a really kind of exciting, lots of crowds. And we've got the Women's World Cup coming in 7 months. I mean, it's just to think, if you asked me in 2020 that we would be in this position, I'd never believe it. I thought we were heading to absolute disaster. And it's a miracle. How else do you explain it?
Well, I mean, I think it certainly provides a foundation. I think moving forward, it's just something that has to be capitalized on. I think so often in the past, the game has had the opportunity to seize the moment. Oh, I'm so tired. My vision is getting blurry, so I'm going to have to jump off soon. So often the game has had these moments and it's let them slip, or it's become complacent and thought that everything will just fall into place for it without it not having to do anything and be proactive. It's the same for this. That goes for this World Cup run. That goes for the Women's World Cup next year. It's been one of the things we've been saying on this podcast for ages now. The game needs to, not just revel in these good times, but it needs to be brave. It needs to be proactive. It needs to get out there and it needs to tell its story. And it needs to not just expect to be recognized and respected for what it's accomplished. It needs to demand respect. It shouldn't just expect the average Aussie punter in the street to recognize why hosting a Women's World Cup, I think it's the 3rd biggest sporting event on the planet after the Men's World Cup and the Olympic Games, is such a big deal. Why making the round of 16 and facing Lionel Messi is such a big deal. Football needs to go out and explain to people and demand that they acknowledge why this is such a big deal. I think the horse has been led to water. Now Football Australia needs to make sure it drinks.
Lachie?
Well, I just wanted to bring up a point sort of related to what Joey's saying. And someone in the comments has just brought up the fact that the prize money for getting knocked out of the World Cup in the round of 16 is $13 million, which I think is 19 Australian. Let's suppose, for the sake of argument, that we make it through to the quarters and do the unthinkable against Argentina. Then it becomes 25. That's for an entity, as you said, Nick, that was on its reportedly on its knees not 2 years ago. That's a significant amount of funding. So what
that was what was in Vince's wallet when Joey tried to grab it.
That's a lot of notes. It's a big old wallet, Nick.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's incredible.
What the game does with that money, where it goes to, again, it's related to what Joey's saying, is really, really important for capitalizing on a lot of the good that's come out of this tournament, both on the field from a results perspective, for the Socceroos at the World Cup, but also the fan scene locally too.
Joey, we can see that you're fading. What time is it there, local?
It's 2:26, and I have to be up in 4 hours.
2:26. Joey, no one feels sorry for you. because everyone in Australia at the moment is being up at 2:26 and has to get up in 4 hours and blah, blah, blah. But why do you have to get up why are they training so early in the morning? Explain that one to me.
I don't know. It's because that's what we've been told in the group chat.
I think
So,
the real
like,
reason you're tired, Joey, is because you're spending too much time looking at social media, which, as we know, according to Graham Arnold, not very helpful. So just less time on Twitter, more sleeping for you, and you'll be right as rain.
And some of the boys talking about getting on their phones and looking at the scenes of Fed Square after the game. Man, Graham Arnold better not hear about that. Like,
imagine
I hear there's an official Socceroos Twitter account. He's not going to be happy about that one.
No, I mean,
right under his nose.
Didn't they just sign a partnership with TikTok, like the most attention grabbing of all the social media applications?
I mean, what happens if Graham Arnold logs onto his burner and just logs onto Twitter and he's cycling through, the likes of Mitch Duke and the likes of Craig Goodwin and all of that sort of stuff, and he says, "Oh, they just like the tweet that went up half an hour ago."
Matthew Ryan just sent you a poke.
Harry Sutar just changed his MSN name. Big sexy Harry Sutar _69XX.
Joey, we thank you so much for joining us. We hope you get some sleep. It's been nice to see your massive apartment that you get to hold on to for a little while longer as we stay in the competition. But just finally, how excited are you to be the sole TNC representative in the stadium when Australia walks out in the round of 16 against Argentina?
I look forward to seeing Harry Sutar punt that little midget Lionel Messi into Rosie.
Hey, whoa.
6 points.
Whoa. Straight to the middle. All right, Joey, we thank you, wish you success. We'll talk to you soon. Lachie, me and you are going to keep going, and we'll use the comments to keep us going. Joseph has a theory on the social media thing. Our deal with TikTok was timed, so when Qual megs Messi, it destroys the internet. How about, you ever think, man, 2 weeks ago, all we could talk about was, let's get Qual minutes, let's get Cummings minutes. Qual and Cummings have to be there. Qual and Cummings have done nothing, and it doesn't matter a second. It's all this talk of Volpato. Volpato should have been there. Man, who cares about him anymore? It's actually amazing how quickly football changes. And I just mean, even in terms of, do you remember after the Japan game, we had the Japan game qualifier, we had a stinker.
Yes.
We absolutely stunk it up. There was reports that Football Australia was looking at replacing Graham Arnold before the playoffs. They didn't have confidence in him. We didn't have confidence in him. Most of the country didn't have confidence in him and this team. I don't think many of us believed that we were going to beat Peru. I can tell you that I didn't think we were going to get past Peru. And then when we did qualify, I thought, all right, well, we're going to go to the World Cup, like we've gone to the last couple and not win a game. Or even if we do win a game, we won't get out of the group. And holy shit!
I mean, Stoll, I've been stunned at just about every turn from the qualification onwards. So little of what's happening. Makes sense in my brain. I sit there in lotus pose trying to sort of get my head around it all, but nothing works. All I can do at the moment is just feel. I haven't slept enough to think, Nick. But if I could make a serious point about Qual. I thought that Graham Arnold in this game, because I was thinking is now the right time to bring Qual on? It's late in the game. Duke looks gassed, and I was raising my eyebrow, as many were, when Craig Goodwin was hooked at halftime for Keanu Bacchus. Graham Arnold nailed the substitutions today. He got them, in my opinion, spot on. Again, like I said, everyone was very confused. Why would you bring Keanu Bacchus on? Why would you switch Riley McGree to midfield? You could have done them 1-for-1. You could have brought on a more dynamic midfielder at that point. But Bacchus was really good. He was really, really good. And I think a lot of people, obviously that's not a surprise to me as a cinched premiership enthusiast. I saw this coming from a mile off, and his buddy Ryan Strain would have been great too. But he was brilliant.
Just on Bacchus. I mean, the story about him as well. My understanding is he was the 26th player in the squad. So the squad is obviously extended to 26 players. Usually it's a 23. Christian Volpato was meant to be in the squad. Arnie tried to get him in, and then when he rejected it, the last person to make the squad, the last midfielder was Bacchus. And so for him to kind of go from that, and I actually don't really know how he's been playing in Scotland. You can kind of eliminate that.
He's been pretty good. He's been pretty good.
What a story. What a story for this guy who, let's be honest, he was doing okay at the Wanderers when he was playing there, but he wasn't setting the league on fire or anything like that. It is it's a team of, the classic thing is a team of heroes, but a team of unexpected heroes. Like that to me is the difference between this team and 06. In 06, man, I kind of expected, maybe I didn't expect Cahill because he just kind of emerged then, he wasn't the superstar there, but I expected big things from Viduka. I expected big things from Kuhl, and he delivered against Croatia.
You expected to win, done.
Yes, I did expect to win. Yeah, actually, I went into those games much more confident. I remember thinking in 06 that we would beat Japan. I remember thinking we would get a result against Croatia. I believed that if we'd gotten past Italy, we could have beat Ukraine, and we could have gone on to the semi-finals. I actually myself had so much more belief in this team, and I think the public, I didn't see a huge amount of we're going to do amazing at this World Cup. So to keep that all in mind, this science of belief, and as Frank has said via YouTube, we were all convinced Arnie was washed. Bloke is laughing now. Expect to win, done. None of this stuff makes sense to me, but maybe it shouldn't. Maybe that's the beauty of it. It makes sense to his players, and they've done incredible. We've been talking 51 minutes, and I'm still, all I can basically say is, holy shit, my mind is blown.
It's just it's an almost like ever-present state of euphoria at this point, because it is so against all odds. It is so unexpected. Mitch Duke was a bone of contention. He was this J2 striker that we couldn't understand why he was necessarily being given all this preference. And now when we've watched Graham Arnold's grand plans, it makes total sense. And look, I'm still not totally convinced by the way that Arnie plays necessarily. It's not exactly how I'd set the team up. Far from it. And I think we were in a group where, we've been quite suited to playing the way that we do. But it just almost doesn't matter at this point. It almost just doesn't matter.
It didn't matter when Greece won in 2004. Who cares about we did lose, the XG in every single game. In every single game, if you play the simulation,
most XG conceded in the
Cup. We're setting records, but we're also in the round of 16. A question has come in, and please tell us your stories. Where you watched the game, your experience of the game. I'd love to hear them. I'd love to read some of them out. Joseph, he already wants to suck Arnie. Arnie's got us into the round of 16, and he already wants to replace him mid-tournament. It has been done, but coaches have been fired mid-tournament, not usually when they're having success that nobody anticipated. He asked, can we get Hervé Renard on a marquee manager signing for the game via Argentina? Mate, Renard, look, I want to see the all-access Saudi Arabia from games 2 and 3, because it's not gone well at all. Raid Arcade asks at Stolly, which sure, at me with that nickname, no problem. How is Australia going to deal with your man Messi? Well, it's a good question. Probably let him know early that he has no Australian DNA. That will obviously kind of confuse him, and hopefully that will crush his spirit. No, look, go on.
Tell him he's achieved nothing. If we just get Harry Sutar to whisper in his ear, you've achieved nothing, mate.
That's a motivation.
All those Ballon d'Ors. It's going to confuse. It's going to confuse him so much that it'll throw him off his game. He'll be like, "What?"
I reckon we say, Messi, you've achieved so much. You've achieved.
Get him to rest on his laurels. Yeah.
No, man, we're Australia. You don't need to try. Just go, have a rest yourself. Just slow everything down. Don't sprint. You play a lot less.
But I worry that gets into the realm of condescension, though. Where you're like, it's his last World Cup. You're like, they're old man. Take it easy. This is your last one. Enjoy it. Have a bit of fun.
He
We'll
was
go easy, I
he
guess.
was very good against Poland this morning. Look, I
Oh, he
will
was
say just kind
excellent.
of on the question. Look, I mean, how do you stop Messi? It is near impossible when he's at his best. And, like every coach has tried something and every team has tried something. And let's not pretend that there's some magic plan that Graham Arnold can make up and that will work. But what I will say is that things that frustrate Messi the most, and I've seen many games where he becomes frustrated, is basically if you can keep the ball away from him. So if you can kind of block his ability to receive the ball, so usually have a defender marking any passing lanes into him, he will eventually get frustrated and drop all the way to the center backs, follow him all the way to the center backs, have someone basically man mark him. Then if he gets the ball in any dangerous areas, you basically have to crowd him from 3 or 4 different ways and just hope that amount of pressure on him forces it. You're going to have to leave other players open, but that's how good this guy is, that it's worth throwing 3, 4 men. You need to be extremely compact in between the lines. All he wants to do all the time is play someone in to stretch the game and then get that pass back, usually from a cutback. Think of the classic, him to Jordi Alba cutback. How many goals did he score like that? He's always looking to play 1-2s off his number 9 as well. You need to be so aware from that. You need to track him every single run he makes. Easier said than done. It will be no shame if he scores against us. He's scored against every other team. But it can be done. It's not impossible. And this Argentina team has shown it has flaws. Now, they started obviously very poorly against Saudi Arabia, or at least kind of the second half against Saudi Arabia. Mexico, they really struggled, especially in the first half. They showed extreme kind of anxiety. Since the Mexico game, this Poland game, they looked a lot more confident. They created a shit ton of chances. So it's going to be very difficult to stop him. But, it's not just him. Di Maria is a vital cog in that team. Enzo Fernandez, who came on, played his first game. He's been brilliant. He's been brilliant for Benfica all year. He's vital to shut down. Look, it's going to be extremely, extremely tough, but I'm so looking forward to it because in a way, like, this is the beauty of the World Cup. Like, for us to be going up against, the greatest player in the history of the game. I mean, this is what it's all about. This is also going to be a massive thing, I think, for the Australian football, well, for the non-football public in Australia, because everyone knows Messi. Like Messi, Ronaldo, Beckham, 3 kind of names that transcend the sport, that even people who barely know the game, if you say to Messi, oh yeah, I know Messi is, I've heard of him before. It's going to be absolutely immense. And the fact that it's happening at Sunday, 6 a.m., I mean, it's a good time. People can wake up early, or they can stay out the night before. Most people don't have to go to work.
It's a great time. It's a great time.
It's really, really, really going to be a really special game. And the reason that we do this podcast, the reason that we do the jobs that we do and love the football that we do, I mean, it's for things like this. And, I haven't been sleeping well for the past 3 days. I don't know how I'm going to go to sleep for the next 3 days. Just the excitement is going to get me. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. What are you feeling about that match?
I mean, excited, equal parts excited and, trepidatious, because as much as I've enjoyed all of this, and my message to a lot of people, going back to what you were saying about like 06 and expecting to do really well, Stoll, savor this, because there might be a time in future, we might go into a 2026. Who knows who's going to play for the Socceroos? We've won 2 games now. We've made it to the knockouts. There might be an expectation in 2026 that we could do the same, and it could blow up in our face. But we have pulled this out of nowhere, and hold on to that feeling of shock and excitement, because it's fun. It is fun.
It is so fun.
I wonder if maybe
such a fun World Cup.
It has.
The first
it
game.
has. Well, yeah.
The good one goal. The good one goal was heaps fun.
Yeah, that part was enjoyable. Just forget the rest. It didn't matter anyway. But look, do we need to play a tagger on Messi? Does Messi need to be tagged? And for those who don't get what a tagger is, it's a player who just follows another player and tries to mark them out of the game. Does Cam Devlin just need to be like scrappy do and follow? Because I don't like, this is my thing, is that if Messi takes up a position, like a central position, I think Moy he might be in a bit of trouble. I don't know how he's going to go trying to follow Messi around. He hasn't really got the fast twitch fibers necessarily. Or do we? I don't really want this. I don't really want to encourage it. But like, what part of Doha is this game being played in? Do we need like a butcher of Bilbao? Is there like a destroyer of Doha that we can call on to cause some problems?
Look, I mean, I'll just say, all these strategies have been done before. Like I've seen Messi play with a tagger. I've seen people try and kick the crap out of him. Often they don't work. Like,
well, and as many in the comments have pointed out, and as you mentioned before, Stoll, even if that any of those harebrained schemes are a success, there's still a lot in this Argentina side to deal with. The one that really is of concern to me, just because of how I use this word a lot, but like dynamic he is as a presence in the front line is Julian Alvarez. I thought he's been quite good as well, and he's a different kind of striker, I guess, for the Australian backline to have to deal with. So he's one I'll be keeping an eye out for too.
Hey, joining us now is Josh Parrish, who was also there at Fed Square this morning. Josh, we're just brainstorming ideas on how to stop Lionel Messi. Any ideas? Do we? I have no idea. Laser pointers.
I mean, it couldn't hurt, right? You try what you can.
If you're in the stadium, buy a laser.
Do you want a serious answer?
Nah.
Okay.
Wait, go on. Serious answer.
Well,
Arnie's probably watching.
Should I suggest a change in strategy now? Like, how dumb does that sound?
But if it ain't broke.
I mean, I was listening to Tim Vickery talk a little bit after the Saudi Arabia game, and yes, the XG kind of flattered Argentina in that match, but what he was arguing was that Saudi Arabia prevented Argentina from getting into their rhythm. And what they want to do is they want to hold possession, they want to pass the ball around, they want to work some chances, and they want to feel comfortable, and then they can start ping the passes a bit faster and sort of build and build and build. And so if you sit off them, it's a slow death. Whereas Saudi Arabia played this high line and pushed up and pressed and didn't give them time on the ball, and that kickstarted the kind of classic Argentina jitters, the Argentina yips that they get in major tournaments, just by getting in their faces. So I feel like I'm a broken record here, but I would love to see us defend maybe 15 meters higher up the park than we did against Denmark, because against Denmark it was perfect because they just crossed and crossed and crossed.
Yeah.
Like
Argentina is not crossing.
Exactly. They're going to try and pick holes. And so I do think, there needs to be a slight adjustment if we're going to have a chance. But,
I love it.
Arnie's playing with house money. Arnie's playing with house money at this point.
This is
it's unbelievable.
We're on a podcast trying to strategize how to beat Messi at a World Cup in a knockout game.
It's just unthinkable. And there's no analysis that I can give of the Denmark game. Never mind that, at Fed Square you're kind of more watching the crowd than you are the actual match on the screen half the time. And I was filming the crowd as well. So but there is no facts or logic or analysis that is applicable to that game. It was just, we just wanted it more. It was Aussie DNA. It was Graham Arnold's vision for the national team come to life.
I am worried that some people in the comments have confused this with an SEN radio show, because Joseph asked, how many disposals can we keep Messi to? Ben Smith says, if we're going down the tagger route, get Ryan Crowley on a plane to Qatar. I have no idea who these people are, but sure.
It's a good joke. All
right, well done. Hey, shout out to Ben Smith. We talked about the perspective here in Sydney and Melbourne. Over in Doha, he had a comment earlier saying he worked during the game, and the West Australian held their front and back pages and Paging Sport for the late edition. Had to be at the printers at 1 a.m. The power of Aussie DNA. I mean, that's kind of like the amazing thing of this moment is, for most of, the year, most of the time that we are, it's a weird feeling being an Australian football fan. Like in the mainstream, when you go into your office at work and, kind of people look at you, soccer, you're into soccer. What's happening with that? Like, what's Is Ibra still playing?
Sorry, are your co-workers Jerry Seinfeld Stoll? So what's the deal with soccer?
Yeah, like a little bit, right? And it's just like, it's this weird thing where you feel like, I guess like you've been into this cool band the whole time, and then suddenly everyone's turning up at the concert and being like, wow, this is the best concert I've ever seen in my life. And you're like, man, why haven't you been listening to them every week? So it's amazing, but it's really, really beautiful. Last night I was at the Channel 9 Christmas party before I went into work, which is a weird one. And so many people were just talking to me about like, oh, where are we watching the game after this? Where are we watching the game? We've got to watch the game. Da, da, da. It is incredible that the effect that this tournament and this run is having, on Australia. And, it is inspiring the next generation. It is also going to lead to more, opportunities for people in the game, whether that's in media or in, administration roles or whatever. It's a massive boost for the game and a boost that we really, really needed.
Yeah. And I was struck by how young the crowd was. I was doing Vox Pops afterwards and interviewing people, and some of the guys who I was chatting to, well, chat is probably the wrong word, yelling questions at as they kind of yelled into the mic, calling Sutar the Aussie Van Dyke. I think Brexit Van Dyke as well was the one that he's Scottish.
Let's not assume Harry Sutar's opinions on Scottish independence. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely,
okay?
Absolutely. I think the finer point.
Let him speak for himself. That's all the Scottish people want.
But the point
50% of them.
I was making is that so many of them are just teenagers, and it was funny. I was interviewing this rowdy bunch of lads who were really, 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 they were up and about, as Dave Davutovic would say. And I realized that their mum was actually standing behind me and like supervising. And I was like, oh, that's so wholesome. And they were obviously too young to remember 06. They haven't really. They might be too young to remember a victory at a World Cup. So, like any win, they probably don't remember the Serbia game either. So, this is their moment that they will treasure forever and look back on and compare all past teams to and say, why can't we play like that? And that was our golden generation. That this is their foundational memory. And that was actually quite beautiful to see.
We're going to say, this striker is no Mitch Duke.
Exactly.
Why haven't we produced another great striker since Mitch Duke? It's absolutely incredible. Georgia says via YouTube, I can't remember so many positive water cooler chats in my life. Casual fans are so invested. Yeah, it really, really is nice. I like Joseph's comment here, kind of giving us quite a bit of credit. Also important to note that this is the second major tournament since TNC was formed, and we beat Argentina in Japan at the Olympics, and we're in the World Cup round of 16. That's on you guys. Joseph, you're right. All right. We can't take all the credit, but 90% is definitely us. All right. So well done to the rest of you who contributed 10%. I'm stunned. I'm actually stunned. Did you want to give a shout out to any individuals? I thought Miloš Degenek had a really good game. He hadn't played the first two games. That right back position had been kind of an issue for us. And he came in and really did well. Atkinson injured, didn't play well against France. Maybe was put in there maybe because of his speed, I guess, against France. Karacic didn't have the best game against Tunisia, and I thought Miloš Degenek, really, really good game.
I thought he recovered after a slow start, but then I guess you could say that about pretty much the whole team. Who else? I mean, there were so many players who were really good.
The big three that people kept bringing up in the interviews that I did were Sutar, Leckie, and Ryan.
Leckie was fantastic. Again, he was fantastic. And we should mention as well, the trend of the national curriculum speaking things into existence did continue, because as we posted, Damir Kulash a couple of days ago, he said, wow, it's Matthew Leckie's time. And indeed it was. He was playing on fumes. It was so clear that he was gassed. And this is maybe a concern and something we need to talk about in terms of potential rotations to the 11, because there were quite a few tired players. But Matthew Leckie was right up there as looking sort of the ones who were blowing the most. And yet he still managed to pull out that incredible run for the goal. What an effort. What an effort.
It's incredible. Ben Smith brings up the fact Bajic defending for his life after an early yellow card was incredible. Yeah, really, really good stuff. And also, like, I just think of so many of these players, they really didn't come into this World Cup. Like, all the things you say about World Cups, you need to come in, you need to be playing regularly, you need to be in form. You know, they've managed to have these great performances without that. Like, you know, Bajic is having a terrible season, as far as I understand it, at Dundee United in Scotland. And, you know, we talked about Sutar. He, you know, has barely played. Matty Ryan, I mean, what a result for Matty Ryan in terms of he plays for Copenhagen. He's been put on the bench, you know, considered, he's not good enough for us. You know, he's now our second choice. And he's now just helped knock Denmark, who, by the way, nearly made the Euros finals last year. Really looked good. The Euros. I thought they were going to be a surprise packet based on kind of how well they played in the Euros, but just an incredible moment for so many of these players.
I don't think Matty Ryan has done his chances of getting back in the Copenhagen team any favors, to be honest. I think if anything, he'll be public enemy number one. But you know, fuck it.
I think he was pretty okay with that to begin with, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%.
Our Liga says, as Ned Zelic would say, Leckie moment was one of individual brilliance. I mean, I loved the moment with Leckie's goal where he was running and he kind of looked up, and he obviously in that moment when you're on a counter-attack, you're just looking for someone to help you out, someone to combine with, someone to relieve the pressure in that moment. And there was no one. And, you know, in that moment, you can see players sometimes get frustrated, but he just kind of put his head down, was determined to make space for himself, and just fired off the perfect shot. And, you know, I mean, what an incredible kind of moment in his career in terms of, I remember when he started out at Adelaide United and he was quite an exciting young player. And then he went to Germany, he had a decent career, but maybe not kind of the career that we'd been massively hoping for. Came back to Melbourne City, you know, did well, but not to great, you know, huge fanfare. And oh my God, you know, how lucky we are to have Leckie in this team. It just a really, really kind of wonderful moment for him.
Yeah, huge. I mean, yeah, I feels like, as Damius was saying on the previous show, he was due. He was due something big because he's been such like consistent contributor in multiple positions. Remember, Andrew was playing him as a right wing back. He's played up front in qualifiers and scored important goals, headers, and so forth. You know, but at major tournaments, he's probably, before this, his most iconic moment was a bad lip reading of whatever he said to Ron Vlaar in the Netherlands game in 2014.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is the defining moment of his career, and what a goal! Like, he just did it all on himself. There's a great moment sort of in the crowd reaction footage at Fed Square of that goal. It's just in the lead up where there's almost there's a sort of sigh, a slight sigh from the crowd where they think the chance is gone. And then suddenly he creates extra space on his left foot and tucks it in the bottom corner. And, you know, obviously the place goes bananas. But I want to actually put the sort of footage of the crowd reaction and the goal side by side so you can see the moment where everyone thought, there's no way he can do this.
It did go, like, up and down. Like,
it was like, there's something on
really
here.
Did.
He's running to a cul-de-sac. He's going to give the ball away. Oh, he's through again. Oh, my God, it's a goal. Like, it was such a roller coaster.
Geraldo points out it's nice to get into the round of 16 with a nice goal and one that wasn't secretly offside. Obviously referring to Harry Kewell's one in 2006. But you know what? No goal is offside if I really like it. So, for example, if you do an amazing bicycle kick, not offside. If you're Harry Kewell and you score to put us into the round of 16, not offside.
Well, and there was a couple of penalties we should have got in that game anyway, not to mention the 3 yellow cards for Simonic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we should be compensated for... I can't remember, Graham Poll. Hey, let's bring in a good friend of the pod, Ben Smith. Ben, you were up until God knows when trying to get the West Australian newspaper to hold. Did you say hold the presses or whatever? What's the phrase?
Hold the front page.
Hold the front page. Back page.
Yes, I think I may have screamed it when Matthew Leckie scored and woken my neighbours. Last night.
I mean, it's your neighbour's fault for being asleep, to be honest. If they missed that, that's their loss.
I mean, if anything, I mean, it was un-Australian not to be awake at that time. And, you know, I was messaging someone who, you know, isn't really a football fan. And she was like up at like 1:30 in the morning, like, because she couldn't sleep because she had just watched like that and just had this kind of like buzz. And like, I think everyone to a varying extent did, because heading into that game, I was so tired. By the time kickoff came around, I think I'd hit that kind of World Cup wall where I was just completely like the other games and previous games, I'd been fine. I'd kind of got to like the late kickoffs, I'd been all right. Yesterday, when I actually had to work during the game, it got to like 9 o'clock and I was struggling to keep my eyes open. And yet, by the time game finished at by the time I actually headed to sleep at like 1:30, I couldn't get to sleep at all because I just had this buzz. And it was just like going on social media, seeing like so many of my friends either at like pubs in Perth, or, you know, I've got a couple of mates who are actually over in Qatar as well, and they're having the time of their life at the moment. And yeah, just World Cups, just the, you know, like, it's just the fact that, you know, like, I think like what you guys were saying, the fact that casual fans are kind of like getting around it. Like, I've got colleagues who were like up at 1 a.m. last night who normally wouldn't be up at that time for football, and yet they're just kind of posting on Instagram like, how good's this? And yeah, it just makes your heart feel so full. After, you know, we like we've discussed, not just on this episode, but for the past like 6 months, we just had no expectations for this tournament. And for us to be up, like, we're playing Argentina, I still cannot get over that. Yeah, it's just, it feels so surreal, and yet also like deserved, because Denmark were really poor after that opening 25 minutes, I thought.
Matthew Pappas has got some good breaking news for us. New South Wales Premier just announced a live site for Sydney, as he should. Hopefully, there's one in Brisbane, there's one in Adelaide, there's one in Perth.
There was one. Sorry to butt in, Stoll. There was one announced, I think, just before we went to for South Australia as well. So,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be good fun for people who are, you know, Socceroos who are from those states, to see what the mood is like actually where they're from too. That'll be good. But also, you know, united though we are as a nation, we do love state v state rivalry, and this is a great chance for the other states to catch up to Fed Square. This is a rallying cry.
I mean, absolutely. Sydney, all right? Don't let us lose to Melbourne. We got to get more people and have more limbs and have more flares at our live site. Matthew, if you can let us know where that live site is, I don't know, you know, but it's just... it's going to be absolutely amazing. Look, people watching along, send through any questions that you might have. Otherwise, probably going to have to wrap it up pretty soon. I don't know how much sleep collectively any of us have got. I certainly haven't been asleep since yesterday, whenever that was. I don't know what today is. But, you know, I drove home today without any incident, which was good. It hasn't happened on the last...
I feel like I'm speaking to a fugitive. This is actually Nick Stoll's one phone call for the day.
I didn't know there was no right turn.
We managed to apprehend the fugitive after he recorded a live podcast from his house. I'd do it.
I just assumed that was a virtual background to cover up the prison bars.
Is the truck driver from the other day your one-armed man?
Cameron's got a question. Lineup predictions for Argentina. We won't go through the whole lineup.
No changes.
Enzo is that guy.
Do you think no changes?
I think Ireland's going to be forced into making at least one or two changes, just because of how ridiculously hectic this schedule is. The fact that, you know, last World Cup it was 4 days in between games, and now it's 3 games in between games in Qatar, because, you know, apparently having a World Cup in the middle of a season, which had forced that season to have an incredibly congested amount of games, needed just 1 day less of recovery time for the players, because That's FIFA, baby. Arnold will want to use as many as those 11. You know, we've talked about how he likes to reward those who have served him well. I think, I mean, I don't know what happened to Craig Goodwin. He looked gassed from like 10 minutes in. So I don't know whether he was injured or like whether that was Arnie just saving, you know, trying to save his legs or what. Leckie looked tired. Duke looked tired. They all looked pretty tired. Apart from Harry Sutar, who probably could have spent another 2 hours just kind of blocking shots and getting his melon in the way of Danish crosses. But I think we'll see probably a pretty similar one just because Arnold, you know, we know what Arnie's like, but I'd expect probably like 2 changes.
Lachie?
And also it just feels wrong. Like it just feels wrong to change anyone out of what's happened. I don't know. I feel like Josh, like more and more I'm starting to think like Graham Arnold. Like every time a ball got lumped away, I was cheering at Fed Square. I am becoming Arnie. I am become Arnie. Next thing you're going to know, I'm going to disappear off all social media. Can't be using Twitter. Can't be wasting my time with that. But I think perhaps if you wanted to maybe replenish the midfield, like Aaron Moy really divides opinion. And while he did some good things in this game here and there, he also did quite a lot of bad stuff. And a lot of that was related to his mobility or lack thereof. And I think to that end, maybe given the promise we saw from Bacchus off the bench, that's a particular swap, because I do think against Argentina, that midfield line is going to be needing to work harder off the ball, needing to track runners, that sort of thing. So maybe that's an area that I change. But elsewhere, I mean, Leckie looks gassed. You can't drop him. He's a hero. He's a national hero.
Look,
Hey, Lachie,
Redmayne was a national hero. We don't even remember him anymore.
Well, this is one of the great things of all of this, isn't it, Stoll? Because when the Socceroos squad was selected, some people were saying, "Oh, why bother selecting penalty hero Redmayne if we're not going to take penalties?" Well, suck on that one. Suck on that one, as
Honestly,
the great Sam Kerr once
I
said.
genuinely think I'll die if we get through against Argentina because Andrew Redmayne with his dancing denies Messi.
I think we've broken the Stoll. Oh, can we bring David Carney back just for this Argentina game, just so he can reignite his matchup with Messi from a 2007 game? Like, we're talking about a tagger. Let's bring David Carney back.
You know what? No, Vukovic was meant to play in that Ollie Roos team against Argentina.
And then he got suspended, right?
And then he got suspended. I'm just trying to think, are there any players still left around that was in that Ollie Roos? I know Geraldo will let us know. Hey, Josh, any lineup changes for Argentina?
No, I'm like Lachie. I think it'll be an unchanged 11 unless Arnold is forced into a change through extreme fatigue or injury.
Or excessive social media use.
Yes, yeah, of course. Of course. I want to know, Lachie, is Sutar versus Alexis McAllister the closest that Scotland's going to come to a World Cup knockout game anytime soon?
Well, look, someone on Fitbit Twitter did point out that Jason Cummings has now made it further than Scotland ever has at a World Cup tournament, which, you know, hurts, but also I have to admit quite funny. And often the best result is always the funniest one. That is an adage that I live by. Speaking of McAllister, though, pretty cool that his dad, whose name escapes me, but someone in the comments,
Carlos, I think.
Carlos, yeah. I think his only caps for the Socceroos, for Argentina, were against the Socceroos in 93, so 94 qualification. And so now his son will be playing against us.
Well, the question is, who's going to be the Paul Wade of this current squad? You know, Paul Wade was the tagger on Diego Maradona in those playoffs.
Can we bring Charlie Yankos back?
I mean, I honestly think Bacchus might not be the worst choice for that role. If we're literally going to do this, if we're going to sacrifice somebody to just have a man marker on Messi, you know, he's come up big.
Every name sounds insane. Bacchus on Messi, Devlin on Messi, Bajic on Messi. It just none of these. My brain is constantly separated. These two things: Australian football and Barcelona and Messi and all these things, and now they're together, and it's screwing with my wiring. Hey, Joseph makes a really good suggestion, which is A-League tents handing out ticket discount vouchers at each live site. Imagine first round back with every game packed out. Yeah, like. Really, really good chance for the A-League to capitalize on it. I hope they do, whether it's through advertising on television or handing out tickets or whatever. I mean, the fact that Leckie has scored, Goodwin has scored as well. 2 players who are regularly in the A-League. Duke was recently in the A-League. It's really good. Hiraldo wants to make a serious point, which is tough at this kind of time in the show. But Football Australia needs to organize a welcome home friendly ASAP. I mean, let's get knocked out first. Like we might win the whole thing. And ideally for Melbourne to reward the Fed Square crowds. Yeah, I think that would be really nice. Georgia kind of adds to that. Says open air tram down Swanston Street. Georgia, do you know how trams work? Open air. I mean, don't they use the thing on the top to get down the thing? And they like
maybe just open door tram down Swanston Street.
Yeah. I think
at least you won't have the thing out of Mike Bassett, England manager, where you take a wrong turn up the freeway. At least you can avoid that.
Which
can I share one funny story from this morning? And it's a bit of a humble brag name drop, but it's so I was.
As long as you don't share a phone number.
No. I was in the sort of on the steps, which were cordoned off so that there could be some cameras there, which I was thankful for because it was pretty rowdy. And when you've got expensive equipment, you're kind of like, this is great, but also please be careful. And just next to me were your employees or your current temporary employees, Nick Stoll, SBS, doing their live crosses with John Aloisi and Richard Bayless, and they're out there watching. I think that it was at halftime or something. And I was sort of on the periphery of the conversation. I'm not going to say I was in the thick of it, but and then John Aloisi sort of goes, "So what's the deal with the flares? Are they allowed them?" And I'm like, "No, John, they're not." I mean, bless him. He saw all these police, and he's like, "Well, surely those people would be getting arrested if they weren't allowed flares."
That was so good though. It's like they put out a post, the Fed Square account, just it's a public place, so there'll be no alcohol, there'll be no flares. I saw more flares in 90 minutes than I've seen I've been a supporter of the A-League for a decade. I've seen more in that evening today or this morning, whatever the fuck it was at this point, to be honest. I'm so tired. Today than I've seen before.
And you couldn't see the screen for like 5 minutes. I mean, you may have already covered this, but you couldn't see the screen for like 5 minutes after the goal. So if it got ruled out due to VAR, no one would have known.
And
so
the alcohol thing.
No flares.
They said no flares. They said no alcohol. And
did they say anything about bongs? Did they say anything?
Didn't specify. It's kind of an unspoken rule. But one of the first people I bumped into had just a grocery bag with like a 6-pack in it.
Yeah.
Like, try and stop us. We are massive.
Lachie, I'm assuming that was our friend and colleague Nick Dabano.
Allegedly, I prefer really not to speak.
He
was working, so I will actually protect him on this one.
Yeah, he was working a 6-pack. My Seven West colleague Adrian Barrett did tweet this morning. Wondering what Perth's flare policy was in case we do have a live site. I think Mark McGowan has his hands full trying to negotiate with our nurses unions, but I'm sure the live site kind of goes above it in a pecking order at the moment. And I'm sure he'll repeal the flare policy for Northbridge for just one night.
Maybe the nurses union should turn up to the live site. Rip some flares.
I've just clocked that someone in the comments has been put on a timeout for 5 minutes.
Sorry, Daniel. I put you in the naughty corner.
I think that was the person who was questioning Scottish independence. So
it was
what's going on?
Trams.
Usually there's a lot of my goodness.
Whoa. Comment section's been.
I'm gonna have to enact another timeout here, I think.
Well, but Look, I don't know how they managed to repeat one question, but it's always a good time into the show to get your plugs away. Georgia, if you want your football fix before Sunday, A-League Women is on this weekend. So whet your appetite. I mean, to be fair, if you do want your football fix before Sunday, there is also a shit ton of World Cup games on.
But not in the middle of the night. That if
No,
you want something that's in like normal, regular person
I'm not.
waking
I'm
hours.
now nocturnal. I'm now nocturnal. So yeah.
I haven't.
So you have to set your alarm to wake up for the 3
For, like,
p.m.
midday,
A-League Women's
yes.
kickoff.
All right. Well, look, we're an hour and a half into this espresso edition pod. Everyone is exhausted. I think we're going to wrap it up here. Any final thoughts that you guys want to share before we go?
No thoughts, just vibe.
Just vibes.
Just vibes. I mean, what a time to be alive. Like,
Yeah.
nothing makes sense anymore, and I love it.
Lachie, you dead?
Nah, I've got nothing to add. My brain is mush, but my heart is full.
All right.
Actually, you know what? I might collapse here. In the great words of Patrick Kisnorbo.
Well, in TNC tradition, we want to say thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to everyone who was at Fed Square, who provided that amazing atmosphere. Thank you to everyone who watched across the country. And a big, big, big thank you to the Socceroos for giving us and the world this incredible, cathartic moment of joy. And as we traditionally do, we wish you all the success possible in the round of 16 and beyond. So once again, thanks and success.